So it's like, all right, what's a thing that is both like just super engaging physically, but also intellectually, and where you can't afford to focus on something else? And I think to some degree, it's like MMA is like the perfect thing, because it's like if you don't like you stop paying attention for 1 second, you're going to end up on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. So, I've just found that is just really important for me in terms of like what I do and being able to just kind of maintain my energy level, maintain my focus, because then like after, an hour or two of working out or, rolling or wrestling with friends or, training with different folks, it's like, now I'm ready to go solve whatever problem at work for the day. And like, I've fully processed all the different news for the day that's come in, and we're just ready to go.
How did you get introduced to martial arts training? Like, how long ago was this?
It was in the last 12 months, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because it was basically I run a lot and just do that. And then basically since COVID, it's like got super into surfing and foiling, then got really into MMA.
So how did you initially approach it? Like, how did you get a trainer? Like, what did you do?
I know a bunch of people who are into it. There's actually this really interesting connection between people who surf and do Jiu Jitsu.
Oh yeah,
so
a lot of similarities.
So a bunch of the guys who I do that with, they kind of have gyms in Kauai, and I basically collected a bunch of recommendations, ran them by a bunch of people who I know, and I ended up. I trained with this guy, Dave Camarillo.
Oh, I know Dave.
Yeah, Guerrilla Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
And he's awesome.
He's great.
Yeah, super nice guy, and I feel like I'm learning a ton. And the crazy thing is, like, I've I don't know. I mean, it really is the best sport. I don't. The question isn't how did I get into it. It's how did I not know about it until just now. From the very first session that I did, like 5 minutes in, I was like, where has this been my whole life? It's like, all right, my mom made me do 3 varsity sports, and like my life took a wrong turn when I chose to do fencing competitively instead of wrestling in high school or something, right? It's like there's something that's just so primal about it. That's I don't know. It's and I've since then I've just introduced a bunch of my friends to it, and that's been really fun because now it's like we train together and we just like wrestle together, and it just I don't know. There's like a certain intensity to it that I like, and it's sort of I don't know. Maybe it's like there's this cultural thing where maybe a lot of people haven't considered it,
right?
But I've had 100% hit rate of introducing friends to it and converting them to people who now train. Every single person who I've kind of shown it to is like, this is amazing. This is like obviously how I should be training and working out.
Yeah. That's very impressive that it's 100%. You must have some solid friends, because a lot of people get turned off by the amount of effort that's involved, but they get excited by the problem solving, which is the more fascinating part, like learning the techniques and focusing on memorizing the techniques and developing the skills, and then drilling. Like that's probably one of the most important things about jiu-jitsu that people don't do enough of is drilling. Like I made some of my biggest leaps in martial arts from like blue belt to purple belt just through constant drilling. I was drilling all the time with my friend Eddie Bravo, so we were always working on techniques, and so I was able to like progress much quicker. And then I noticed when I stopped doing that later, my progress kind of stagnated. It's like there's a real clear correlation between the amount of energy you put into drilling and observing the technique, and then just going through the motion with like someone offering like 20%, 30% resistance. Yeah. It's just not as fun. Like sparring is the most fun. Like you immediately want to just slap hands and start rolling. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really trust Dave, and so I think it's also
Dave's great.
Yeah, and I'm also just depending on what's going on in my life and work that day. Like some days I like have the energy to go spar, and some days it's good to just go drill. And it's like, all right, there's a lot going on. There's it's better to just go do something like
Both
20
things
times
are
in a row.
important. Both things are important, but if you can force yourself to drill more than you spar, you'll get better.
Yeah.
It's really important. It's like the most important thing, and it's the thing that people do the least of. Because like to really like carve those pathways in your mind, like when someone is in this position, you do that, and then you immediately get your knee in position, you shift your hips. It's just it gets driven into your programming, so that in the flow of an actual rolling session, it just happens.
Yeah.
You see Tom Hardy just won a bunch of fucking
I did.
matches. Tom Hardy is like an ass kicker. Him and Mario Lopez are out there competing in Jiu Jitsu tournaments. Like, this is wild. And they're both like beginners. They're both like blue belts. I'm like, that's incredible.
Well, maybe I'll get there for my 40th birthday.
You should do it. Bourdain did it. He did it when he was like, God, I think he was like 60.
I just think I do a lot of stuff like this with friends, but I also just find like wrestling around with friends is
fun.
It's awesome.
Fun. Yeah, wrestling is fun. Jiu-jitsu is even more fun because it's like wrestling with like finishes. Yeah. I'm excited that you're into it. It's really cool. And I think, it really enhances your enjoyment of watching it on television because you know what's happening.
But there's also like a lot of good parallels, I think, in philosophy for life and work and all that. I mean, both surfing and foiling and in jiu-jitsu, MMA, it's like, I think it sort of teaches you about like the flow and momentum of things. And I think business is like this in a similar way, where it's like the hardest thing is knowing when you're in a position where you need to push through versus sort of developing the intuition for when like, all right, when like the momentum is just going in the other direction. It's like, all right, you're not going to be able to pump over this swell. If you keep your weight in this direction, you're going to get swept, right? I do think, I mean, it's a super concrete thing. I think one of the things that's sort of frustrating running a company is like the feedback loops are so long, right? It's like, all right, so I showed you the pre-release version of the new VR headset that we're building. It's like, we've been working on that for years. And now it's like, so basically the ideas that went into that, and there's obviously a lot of problem solving even up until now to kind of get it to work well, but the basic principles of, okay, what like big features are we going to prioritize? Made those decisions years ago. And we're not going to know if that's right until maybe a year from now, until we see how that goes. So there's something that I think is sort of, it's difficult in running an enterprise of that scale to like try to learn from things at such a long, such a kind of a long interval. And it's something that I just find super rewarding, is having these parts of what I get to do on a day-to-day basis where you're learning about, like, you get to push on the world or push on other people and get to kind of see how that goes like a second later instead of 4 years later. Right. It's like, all right, am I going to be able to like go turn that direction on that wave, or am I just going to get swallowed? Right. So it's, I don't know. I think that having that mix in your life is, it feels really important and healthy to me. And I mean, I try to get my friends into it. My kids do jiu-jitsu too. I just think it's like really important that they kind of develop all these skills and appreciation for doing physical things, just like my parents taught me. But I don't know. It's, I guess overall, it's like a big part of, it's a big part of of who I am, I think. I mean, going back to the other conversation about like, are we just brains and tanks? It's like, no, because this is like the part of, my life that I think is, it's like this is super fun. Like the building things, it's like that's super engaging too. It's like a very different type of intellectual exercise.
Well, it's also the one-on-one physical connection with a person. I would imagine that your life has got to be very bizarre because you are the head of this enormous platform.